Hello, lovelies. Esther here with a discussion of the Keishobou Tarot deck, 1973 deck, which, as far as I understand from my reading, if you know otherwise, please email me or comment below. This was the first tarot deck published in Japan. And as someone who is a Zen Buddhist, you know, my primary spiritual practice is from a Japanese lineage, and I'm also, you know, this tarot fanatic. To be able to find this first of all Japanese published decks is very exciting to me. I'm also really interested in that early 70s moment when the tarot is kind of exploding on the alternative health and spirituality scene in the West, and, you know, at the same time, things like Buddhism and meditation and yoga practices are also exploding. And then you've got Japan saying, oh, what are they doing with that tarot thing? So it's a really cool deck. I am greatly indebted. I had known about this deck, but it wasn't really high on my radar. But then I saw Melissa Zupan's really well done video, like all of her videos, about this deck, and got completely obsessed and was able to actually quite quickly, very fortuitously, track it down as a trade. And this lovely is in my hands. So what it includes is a book, a slipcover, and a book. And I won't go into too much detail because Melissa's video is pretty thorough. And there's other information online. I studied some Japanese. Japanese is a freaking hard language. My brain is all like little dried styrofoam at this point. It's really hard for me to learn Japanese. I thought, oh, I'll pick it up. I'll study it. Yeah. Okay. I can read a tiny bit, but I can't read this. But I can aspire to read this book. Anyway, it comes with this book. And then a slipcase that includes the cards. And the cards, you know, they just hit. They hit me so hard. There's something about the palette and the particular way, and this is the point that Melissa was making, is this is a hybrid deck. It takes the kind of very characteristic woodblock style of a traditional Marseille style deck, a Convert Marseille, you know, 1760 style woodblock, but merges it, particularly in what would be the pip cards, merges it with Waite-Smith imagery. But even in the trumps and the court cards, you have some Waite-Smith imagery. So this fool looks like a Marseille-style fool in a lot of ways, but he's carrying a white flower, and the dog is, he's facing toward our left, right? Our left, correct? And he's about to step off a cliff. And the dog isn't pulling his pants so much as it might be warning him or encouraging him. So it has all of this, and then, you know, he's got the rucksack. There's all of this Waite-Smithy stuff, right? This magician, totally Waite-Smith magician, right? And the titles, even though this is a Japanese deck, the titles are in English. You've got the copyright, of course, 1973. Gaichi was the artist's, his nom de plume. That's not quite the right phrase, but his artistic name. But look at the High Priestess. She really looks like the Papist. So this is my second early-ish, vintagey Japanese tarot deck. There's a bunch of, the Japanese have produced a bunch of decks. They pick up tarot from the West and then go with it in really big ways. And there's some amazing decks out there that are quite collectible and quite expensive and above my pay grade right now. But I did a few years back manage to snag a Japanese copy of the original Angel Tarot. Now, the Angel Tarot is a deck that's pretty common on eBay. It's out of print now, but Stuart Kaplan did a version of it in the 90s. Basically just picking up from the Japanese images. And so many of you have seen this deck before, which is pretty much Marseille style, but it has sort of elements of kind of more of a Spanish type. The swords don't look sort of Marseille style swords, and it has hearts. So it has the French hearts instead of well, not instead of cups, actually. It has the hearts with the cups. And then, you know, you've got the French symbols like the clubs with the wands. So it has this reminder in some but not all of the cards of the French suits, and then this kind of sense of more of a Spanish kind of relationship to the swords, but then you have spades there too. So it has a kind of hybrid-y feel to it. This is the Stuart Kaplan version. This is like maybe 1997. I love that Stuart Kaplan cardstock of those days. I think this was probably printed. I don't have the box here with me, but this was probably 1980. Oh yeah, much earlier. Yeah, because I was going to say this is that more of that 80s cardstock. What does that say? The Angel Tarot deck is made in Japan by Angel Playing Card Manufacturing Company. The cards are collated in the following sequence, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it was printed in Japan. But I love the cardstock. This is more the size of, say, if any of you have the Tarot Classic, that early Stuart Kaplan deck. And I love the butterscotchy coloring, and we passed the devil a little while ago, but the kind of Lululemon devil, very chaste looking devil. You don't see any of his naughty bits. He just looks like he's wearing leggings. There we go. Our Lululemon. Anyway, very fun deck. And the Japanese version of it, the card images are the same, or the earlier version. I guess that version, the version I just showed you, is also printed in Japan, but it's the same cardstock essentially, but has this backing that has the double faces on it, but essentially the same cardstock. And it comes in this funny little box. Yeah, very interesting culturally. Okay, so that's my experience with Japanese tarot before I owned the Keishobou. I love this deck. There's, I can't remember if this was on Facebook or in a YouTube video, but someone who was saying they worried about the cardstock, that it felt like this cardstock, it was thick and stiff, but they thought it would not hold up to wear. To me, this just feels very much like a lot of 1970s, 1980s cardstock. It feels slightly varnished. It's basically matte, has a slight sheen to it. I love it. I love the colors, the simple backings. I love this deck. But because it is, I lucked out in being able to acquire this deck. So 7 of Swords. You see how it's Marseille imagery in the style of the art, but this is the Waite-Smith 7 of Swords. This is the Waite-Smith 8 of Swords. This is our Nightmare card, right? This is our Desolation 10 of Swords. But then we come to the quartz, and it sort of looks more like the Marseille quartz or the aces, right? So really a beautiful hybrid with an incredible color palette. What I was about to say was, although I don't think the cardstock is especially vulnerable, I am aware that I was really lucky to get this deck, and I'm reluctant to read with it. But I love it. So what I decided to do, and this is kind of why I wanted to make this video today, was to create a study version of the deck just for me. And I just wanted to share, like a proud parent, I wanted to share the outcome of that. I did this with my iPhone, folks, and that's why the images are cropped. I wouldn't necessarily have chosen to crop the images, but because I did this with my iPhone, created images of the cards with my iPhone, they were all catawampus, and I just had to cut them so that they would work in a regular tarot card format. This is the Make Playing Cards standard tarot size in a linen finish. So This is Esther's Study Keishobou, and I'm just going to go through the cards. Is it brilliant and perfect? No freaking way. I mean, again, I did this on my iPhone. These are my images for my personal use. They got washed out at times, or the focus wasn't right. I started out trying to capture the copyright if I could, but a lot of the images I couldn't. I sacrificed all the titles. Some of the images came out very sharp and clear. Some of them didn't. The colors are, some of them are very, very accurate. Some of them are not. As with all kind of deck modifications, which this is basically, you have to make decisions about how you crop, you know? If you're going to have to cut the image, what elements can't be cut and what can be sacrificed? How do you hone in? And depending on the image, I struggled with this one a little bit. You know, I can't get all of the figures are cut off in the original, but not completely cut off. I lost a lot of hats in this process. I lost the top of the lady's hat. This was a hard one. There's no way I could get the whole tree and all of the figure. I wanted at least some of his hair, and I wanted at least the hint of the top branch of the tree. And compromise. Death cuts everything off anyway, so there you go. I'm really excited. I haven't tried to read with this deck yet. It literally just arrived. You know, if you're going to cut off some of the tower, you know, I wanted to make sure that I got all of the crown. I couldn't get all of her foot, or really most of her foot in the water. That seems like an important element, but I couldn't get it, so her foot's cut off. I struggled with the moon a lot to try to get it. Our twin kids. Judgment. This was one I struggled with because it has so much detail at the top and at the bottom of the card. So I ended up not really getting much of the open grave, but I needed to get enough of Gabriel. But I had to be careful. This halo kind of looks like horns already. And anyway. And the world. Couldn't get all the four the evangelist figures in the corners. But I got a little bit. I couldn't get the whole rooster. Cock? Eagle? The bird. Eagle! Some images got more blown up than others because of the way I took the photograph. This picture really has got screwed up. But, you know, you can see, sort of. I really love this Make Playing Cards linen, by the way. And by the way, I deliberately did not save the images that I made because this is just for me. I don't want to be trying to hold on to these images for any other use than just my own personal use. But I wanted to share them. You know, I feel like, the colors are off, you can tell. I wanted to share them. I wanted to share, one of the things I love about the tarot community is the way we work with decks and modification, and the way we we make our cards our cards. You know, that's sort of a central feature of actually what it means to be a tarot reader. The work of reading, right, is we have to make the meaning our meaning. The cards have to be our cards. And so whether you feel comfortable with deck modifications, which I've trimmed and edged my a number of decks in my day, but I'm just too messy. But whether or not you literally are modifying decks that you own, or you're just breaking in a deck through use, or like me, you're creating kind of study images to work with. Or it's just about how you over time come to interpret a particular card as it emerges in the context of your life. Well, this card got really... This is barely the 8 of Wands. I have 8 wands here and a little bit of a plant. But whether, whatever way you're working with the cards, to be a tarot reader means to make the cards yours. And I love how, particularly through this online world, the way in which we share and celebrate this work of making meaning ours. Oops. Okay, we've got the Knight. What happened to the... There we go. Knight. Did I move over the King? I must have. Yes, I did. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just gabbing. Okay. Kind of a Monty Python aesthetic in these, isn't there? With the hand. I love it. I love how when you make Marseille, this Ace of Pentacles, when you get that, you realize that the Waite Smith Ace of Pentacles, like this is not the Ace of Pentacles as it appears either in the Marseille Tarot or in the Waite Smith Tarot. It is a Marseille inspired reading of the Ace of Pentacles as it might appear if you were trying to remember what the Marseille Tarot Ace of Pentacles looks like, knowing what, you know what I mean? It's not either lineage. It's its own thing. I love it. Okay. It looks like it should be, but it's neither a Waite Smith nor a Marseille. This guy was hard. This is actually kind of telling how it's hard. The whole point of the 4 of Pentacles in the Waite Smith imagery. So this is, that kind of influenced Waite Smith imagery, but with Marseille flavor, right? This whole deck looks like this. He's holding the 4. He's grasping his pentacles, that kind of miserliness. But I couldn't hold on to all the pentacles as I cropped the card. So I pretty much lost 3 of them. It's sort of an allegory for what it means to hold on and let go. And that's another thing about making meaning with tarot. We got to both hold on and let go. I love this version of the 6 of Pentacles because it's really kind of ambiguous. You see the guys holding the pentacles, but are they being given it? Are they holding it? Are they themselves giving? And then in my cropping, it becomes even more ambiguous. This is my card of the month this month, the 7 of Pentacles. I love this version of it. And this 8. I gotta say, I'm super pleased with my little study deck. I mean, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, because when you use your iPhone to take pictures of cards, you don't end up with perfect images. But I am happy with it. Whoops. And I love these figures. This deck is so sweet. Oh my God, look at this. The aces in this deck are really fun, like that Ace of Pentacles I was showing you, and this Ace of Cups, which also, it's not the Waite Smith Ace of Cups, though it kind of is. It's more Waite Smithy than not, but it still has that kind of weird way in which this hybrid form is creating its own thing. This is a very interesting 2 of Cups, right? This having the lion's, the winged lion's head, which really looks like it's on a pike. And then we've got the 3. This is so close to the Waite Smith. It's just he's dressed up in Marseille wear. I love this guy's expression, right? So expressive. And creepy children are creepy children no matter what lineage you're working with. This was another one that was hard to capture because of the way in which it fills both the top and the bottom. How do you crop it? Not entirely. There's no way that I would be really happy with it. Because again, I'm just working with an iPhone. I'm not able to change I'm not doing Photoshop. I'm not really messing around with the images. I'm just cropping them. I love how he's got the two cups in his hands like maracas. And I really love this 10 of cups too. It's just, they're pointing, which they are in the Waite Smith image too. But here it's like, they're cups in the sky. No rainbow, just cups. And this is perhaps my favorite image in the deck. This hybrid, all the pages are called jacks. This hybrid jack of cups. So he's got the fish in the cup like the Waite Smith. But he's just hugging it. I love it. Let me balance my intuition and soul. Let me balance it precariously in my hand. The cup court figures, well, I like the king, but they look kind of sad. I wasn't real happy with this crop image too, because I think it blew up the image too much, but there you go. So, the Keishobou, my study deck, and the original deck. These are really hard to come by. They're expensive, but if you can get your hands on one, it is a very sweet deck. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, thank you so much for your practice. And now, having gone through a flip through of my Keishobou tarot and my little study deck, which I keep scattering on the floor, I'd like to do a little 3-card draw, just asking the deck, what do you want me to know? So somehow this card was, that card was face up in the deck. It got flipped around when I was dropping cards, I guess. Okay, the 3 of Pence. King of Swords. The Ace of Wands. So I think this deck is encouraging a kind of dedication to the work and creativity. You know, this is going to be a collaborative process, but so much of working with this deck is also going to be unleashing my own fire and air, my own capacities of energetic, communicative, mind-based clarity. That's pretty auspicious. What I like about borderless decks, and these where I've cropped them, and also the palette is so consistent, is the way it creates something that feels a little bit like a tableau. Yeah, sword and wand, king and ace, and in the middle, that sense of dedicating oneself to one's work and the team and collaborative energy that is entailed in that, even when the work feels so much like it's the work of the self, bringing their own clarity, their own energy forward, remembering that teamwork at its heart. Wow. The Keishobou in my little study edition with its Game Crafter linen finish. Gotta love it. Okay. And now, what are the cards that are surrounding me right now? So if I'm like you, or if you're like me, you might have way more decks than you can show love to in any given moment. So what are the decks that are really kind of pressing themselves forward for me right now? And I'm just looking around what's ready at hand. And so there is the Carnival at the End of the World, which is a deck that I think is going to really bear my attention. It's really a smart deck. The book is unbelievable. It's got that kind of, it's got linen cardstock. It's got cardstock that some people say is like Pagan Otherworlds. It's not quite as delicious as Pagan Otherworlds. At least I have the first edition of that deck. And the images, they're so cool. They're so cool. I love this High Priestess, Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the cards, one of the decks that's surrounding me right now. The other is the El Goliath, the second edition, which I haven't even shuffled. It's just been sitting here waiting for me to sniff and to love. And oh my God, I want to be that little mouse. I want to dive right in. And what else? I recently got a copy of another black deck. This is Briggs Black Tarot. There are a lot of decks with names that are similar to this. This is available right now on Amazon. It's really inexpensive and it's beautifully produced. So Anton, I'm forgetting his last name, the CEO of Siren Imports and Briggs is just dedicated to bringing a bunch of new tarot decks into the market, and he's really creative and interesting. And this deck is gorgeous and deep and weird, and I've been having some good times with it. I'm also another kind of self-published deck. This is C in London's 1909 art restoration deck. I mean, how many restoration decks do I need? Well, it turns out all of them. And I just did a reading with it today, and this was the central card. so I'm in love with this deck. But I really appreciate the subtlety of the restoration, and it has a quality all its own based on the 1909 very rare Rose and Lilies Waite Smith deck. So I'm super excited to be exploring this deck. I'm trying to make friends with my Lumina Tarot, despite its sometimes Coachella-esque court and Trump figures. The pips, people have said this before, the pips are genius, I think. And I'm making friends with the cardstock. It's not terrible at all on this mass market French edition, but I am now very much in the market for a vintage, vintage. Can it be vintage if it's only a few years old? A first edition of this deck. So if you know of any first editions of this deck, or you're interested in trading away your first edition, let me know. I'm also working with the Arnoux Tarot that Conrad Stain has done a version of on his GameCrafter? Make Playing Cards site. I really like it. It has this crackle back, and this is a plastic version. I need to do a video about plastic decks. And what else? The Lonely Dreamer Tarot continues to be something that is surrounding me and that I'm working with. The second edition is coming out soon. I love this deck. I love this deck. I love this deck. My hands are shaking, but I love this deck. And, oh man, there's so many good decks. In my backpack right now, so it's not in this room, but it's very much at the center of my heart, is Emmanuelle Iger's her Marseille Waite Tarot. Really love that deck, even though don't always love the cardstock. And the Darkness of Light 4th edition. A lot of the human figures I don't love. Again, there's a certain kind of oh, I don't know. There's a certain kind of come hither, pagan Coachella come hither look, which is not my favorite, but a lot about this deck I do love, not least of which, as a friend pointed out recently, not least of which are the dogs, all the amazing dogs that are all modeled after the artist's, Tony DeMoro's own dog. And then there's, this has one of my favorite depictions of the Three of Wands. I just think the coloring is really beautiful. And the flowering staffs, the branches. Yeah, I think that's kind of, there's, I'm looking out across the camera, there's tons of decks. There's always tons of decks, but I think those are the decks that are right now pressing upon me and demanding that I pay attention to them. Well, there's Marie Bento's Lua Tarot too, which I also haven't really dived into, but it's a brilliant deck and it's brilliantly done and beautifully produced. The cardstock is unbelievably gorgeous, and the quality of the engravings and their reproduction, the subtlety of it, and the smartness of the images chosen. Everything Marie does is beautiful, and this is no exception. So that's another, her Lua, L-U-A, Tarot is beautiful. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you all for your practice. Take good care. Bye-bye.